Hello, my name is Tracy Allen, and I want to welcome you to Cooking with Some Friends. Today, I've got a couple of people that came in and we're going to do some videos. I have a friend, Brian, my second son, and he is going to make beanless chili for you. He does not like beans in his chili. So I, a long time ago, found a recipe and he's adjusted it to make it his own. And so I'm just here to help him, and he's going to make some beanless chili.
Introduce yourself too.
My name is Tracy Allen, by the way. I'm a retired culinary instructor, and I just enjoy cooking. And the more you cook, the better you get at it. So here we go.
Okay, so beanless chili. This is my mom's recipe. I am not sure where she found it. But as she said, I do not like beans at all. So I make chili the way it should be made, without beans. So we're going to start off a pot. We use a cast iron. This is actually made for a slow cooker, the recipe is. But I make it in a Dutch oven on the stove and just let it simmer for a couple of hours. And I changed it up a little bit because my mom's recipe originally calls for 2 pounds of hamburger. I use a pound of hamburger. And then I like to add a pound or 2 of roast because I like meat in my chili. So we're going to start off with that. We're going to put the hamburger. That looks like more than a pound of hamburger.
2 pounds. Don't.
You're fine. Do you want to put that in the pot for me? We'll start off with that in the pot. Go ahead and start browning that. I'm going to cut up an onion, and then I'm going to cube up the roast. So we'll start with the onion. Always cut the end without the stem on. We always leave the stem on the onion. And then I cut it right down the middle, just in half, like that.
Yeah, if you leave the stem on, it stays connected a lot better, so it's not falling apart on you.
And then we peel the onion. I always hate this part because my hands smell like onions forever afterwards. If you wash your hands right after, though, it really helps with the smell.
Do you use a trash bowl usually at home?
I don't. Our trash can is not too far away from our sink, so
yeah. I like to use a trash bowl.
I always just take it and throw it away.
And you use the whole onion?
I use the whole onion, yes.
If you're not crazy about the strong onion flavor, if you're not an onion person, you can use part of the onion.
Like Lee?
Yeah, I have a son who does not like onions, so I cut it up extra small and just use part of it so that he doesn't complain.
And we're just going to dice the onion and real carefully, and I don't know if you want to explain how.
Yes. You just make some horizontal slices towards the stem end, like Brian's doing now.
Flat hand so you don't cut yourself.
Yeah, so you don't get your fingers in the way. And then you're going to make some vertical slices parallel to that line. Again, don't go all the way to the stem because that's holding your onion together. And then you're going to go ahead and dice it up. Again, keep your fingers away from the blade, curled in.
Whoa, I lost a little bit. That's okay. I'm a messy cook. And if you...
Your dad would say that's a sign of a good cook. Is a messy cook.
The thing I like about this recipe too is it's basically you just dump it all in the pot. After you brown off the hamburger and brown off the roast, you just throw everything together and it just kind of sits and marries together. So.
And so many of the ingredients you probably have, I mean, around anyway. Yeah. So, as far as ingredients, like Brian said, he uses some ground beef hamburger, a little bit of beef roast, an onion, some jalapenos, and again, the recipe calls for 2, but if you want more heat, you could add a little more. If you want less heat, you could stick with 1 jalapeno, or you can, if you want more heat, have some of the seeds and...
Right, and it depends on how hot your jalapenos are.
Yeah, all jalapenos are not created equal. It also has chili powder and cayenne pepper, salt and pepper, minced garlic, some rotel, which will give you the chilies and the tomatoes, and then some tomato sauce.
I call that good.
you have that on a medium heat, you might probably crank it up for that. Boy, that is a strong onion.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, so we do 1 whole onion, a pound of hamburger. We let that brown while I cut up the roast. And then once the roast is browned off, it's really, you dump in, the recipe calls for 15 ounces of tomato sauce. You could use diced tomatoes if you would prefer. I don't like that many chunks of tomato in mine because I don't like tomato all that much. Just by itself. Sure, you can ground that up. And then to that, we add 2 tablespoons of chili powder, a tablespoon of cayenne pepper. You can go a little less on that if you want it a little less spicy because that cayenne pepper makes it hot. A little salt and pepper, and then I like to do a couple tablespoons of minced garlic. And then add 2 chopped jalapenos in there, and you just kind of let it go from there. Let it simmer for 2 hours. And really on the roast as well, I try to trim out some of the fat, but you can go with whatever size chunks you want. I like to do like 1-inch cubes if I can.
And that's just a chuck roast. So.
Yeah. And you can use whatever kind of roast. I just like it because it's a little meaty. And the first time I did this with the roast, I was afraid it was going to be a little tough since we didn't do it in the slow cooker. But it actually turns out really, really good. My wife, who does not like spicy food, ate this the last time I made it, and she said it was very, very good. So
when I was teaching and we'd have the chili cook-off.
Yeah, is this the one you did?
I did this one and my other spicy chili recipe, and we won it every year. So, again, you got to know your crowd, who you're cooking for. So, the teachers at the school where I taught that we did the cook-off for liked spice. Mm-hmm. So they were good with having a spicier chili.
And I always joke that I make chili the real way because originally, when they made chili, it was on ranches, and they would have used beef and peppers and onions and tomatoes. But whenever it got to like the Depression and those kinds of things, people started putting beans in it because it was cheaper, and it was a cheap filler, and it could fill you up for cheaper, which was good for families during that time period.
So what are you doing, about 1-inch cubes?
Yeah, 1-inch cubes. I don't know if we'll use this whole.
That's fine.
So that's going to be a lot of meat.
That was
a big roast.
Well, when I buy the double packs of roasts, I separate them so that when
you have a big family.
Yeah,
to cook
well.
For. Although we don't make it up near as often
I
as we used to.
I know. It really does feel like I don't see you guys very often.
Yeah. So if you hear kids in the background too, I have 3 kids that are here with my wife and I. So. One of which is a 10-month-old that I think she's trying to get to take a nap right now. What do you think? Finish this one? And
and call that good.
Call it good.
You can just put that other back in the bag. And that's what I got to do, that other cutting board, so you can do your jalapeno on it. Yeah.
Really, you could cut it all on the same cutting board because it's all getting cooked, but if you're putting anything fresh, absolutely don't use the same cutting board for raw meat and vegetables, just for cross-contamination purposes.
It's amazing how much more this is going to make.
Yeah.
Because of the roast.
Right. Well, and that's what the original recipe only calls for 16 ounces of tomato sauce or 15 ounces, but I always add a little more because I add extra roast in there. That one's mostly fat and gristle. So we'll call that good. I'm going to wash that knife. Put that back in the bag so we can use it for something else later. Move this off of there. Put that in the sink.
You want me to wash that up? Will you?
Oh, either way. It's
I'll do
up
it.
to you. I gotta wash my hands too. So since I've been handling raw meat. Is it brown enough okay?
Yeah, it is. It's And it's really starting to smell good. The onion was really strong before.
Yeah. He would absolutely hate
he would not like it with the strength of the onion.
He does not like onion at all.
I even sometimes cheat on some minor recipes and just use onion powder.
Right.
Because that way he...
Well, that's what one of my other favorite things to make during the winter time is that zuppa toscana, which is just like an Italian sausage soup. I use a copycat recipe from Olive Garden. That's where I had the soup the first time. And my brother was here and we did a soup, like bring your own soup. And he asked me after the fact if it had tomatoes, or not tomatoes, onions in it. And he was like, I can see them. He ate it.
Whether he tasted it or not.
I mean, good for him. He was brave and ate it.
Yeah. Well, he tries more things now, but he's still not a fan of them.
Right. So, and I love these cast iron Dutch ovens, these the ceramic ones that have the ceramic coating. Because the other recipe that I'm going to show you here in a little bit is a jalapeno cheddar bread that we make, and you do it in the Dutch oven. The ceramic, is it ceramic? Ceramic coated, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Porcelain coated.
Yeah. Dutch ovens. That it's super easy. You mix the dough ahead of time, and then you preheat the Dutch oven in the oven at 450 degrees, and basically just drop it in and let it go. And so it's super handy, and clean up on it's easy because you put parchment paper in it, and it comes out nice and clean. Okay, most of that is seared off. If the roast doesn't look cooked all the way through, that's totally fine. You're just trying to get it seared off a little bit. And that's a lot of meat in that thing.
Yeah, it really was. That's why I said it looks a lot.
So I know you guys can't see this, but there's just a lot of meat in this. So when it's all seared off, all browned on the outside, then you basically just start dumping the other ingredients in. So I have tomato sauce. Again, you could use diced tomatoes if you wanted. I just don't like huge chunks of tomatoes in the stuff. And the Rotel gives me enough chunks of tomatoes and stuff in it that you can do that if you wanted. 16 ounces would probably be enough, or the 15-ounce can, isn't it? Yeah, 15 ounce would probably be enough, but I had an extra one in just because there's a lot of meat in this that you can...
I think all companies should go to having the pull tabs on their cans.
I mean, the younger generation isn't even going to know how to use a can opener.
Well,
I didn't know how to use your can opener.
It was different. It opens from the side, the things from the side edge.
So that was 2 cans of just tomato sauce, store-bought. If you have homemade, that would make this even better. Just 1 can of original Rotel. You could use spicy if you really like hot, but I just use the regular because depending on your jalapeno, it gets really hot at times. I remember the first time I had this here, I could barely eat it because.
And you like hot.
And I like heat.
Spicy.
But man, that was really hot.
Yeah.
Do you have another knife, or did you wash this one?
I washed that one.
Okay.
I do have another one.
So 2 jalapenos. I actually leave the seeds and the stem in it.
You like the heat.
Because I like the heat. But it's just a coarse chop on these. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. So just cut off the stem. I then cut them in half. It doesn't have to be pretty. And then half again, and then I just chop it up. That way, if people don't want the chunk of jalapeno,
pick it out.
they can pick it out, but you still get that nice jalapeno heat. You could try other peppers in this.
I wondered about like Anaheim.
I'm sure an Anaheim or a poblano would be good.
Be good.
Poblano, I don't think is as hot.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd go with ghost peppers.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
unless
real
you
brave,
really
I wouldn't
like
use
heat.
like a Carolina Reaper or a habanero or anything like that, unless you really like the heat.
Or maybe mix and have a little bit of the hotter pepper along with the jalapeno.
And sometimes if I'm making this at home and I know Taylor's going to eat it, I do a little less jalapeno because she doesn't like things as spicy as I do.
It almost looks like a stew at this point because spices haven't been added.
Right. And then once it simmers for that long time, a lot more of that juice comes out of the meat, and it makes it really, really good. Oh, dropped one.
Well, so many recipes like that call for like bouillon or something to go with it, but with the roast you wouldn't need to.
Yeah. So just real quick chop on these. I'm not holding the knife right. I know you're supposed to do it a certain way, but I
haven't been watching.
I'm not trained in culinary arts. I just learn by doing and watching my mom. So, okay, so we've got the jalapeno, we've got the tomato sauce, all the beef, all the onion in there.
Looking good.
And then we're gonna do taking the lid off your spices.
No, I do too. So
I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of chili powder, and I actually did this with dark chili powder.
Oh, I like the smoky, or even the smoky.
Right, and it was good. But just 2, and it looks like a lot. But you've got to get that chili flavor in there.
My other recipe calls for 1/4 of a cup, which would be 4 of those.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, this just 2, and then a tablespoon of cayenne pepper is a lot of cayenne pepper.
Yes, that's where a lot of your heat's going.
If you need to go with less, absolutely go with less. You don't have to do the full 2, or the full 1, but I kind of like it. And it doesn't have to be exact.
My kids at school, when I taught culinary arts, they would have a fit because at watching me cook, because I make them level off and be precise, and I did all that, but they were just learning. And once you've cooked for a while, I told them even when I do salt, I don't measure because I know what a teaspoon and a tablespoon looks like in my hand.
I don't measure it anyway. I just
so many times it's to taste, but that comes out.
This comes out really fast, her salt shaker, so I'm not going to do a ton, but you do have to season your food. And
I do like salt, and I love pepper.
I always figure with salt especially, people can add it afterwards if they need to. And I do love pepper as well, but you don't want to go too heavy-handed in this because it's already got a lot of peppers.
Yeah. Well, and chili is a Tex-Mex thing, but the whole Mexican food stuff, we have a tendency to think we cook Mexican food. We don't.
We cook Americanized.
And guys, I cheat. You can buy cloves of garlic and do all that yourself. But I'm also
there is a difference.
Work smart. Yeah, there is a difference. But I'm also the school work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And where you can buy or do the convenience stuff that's already prepared for you. If it doesn't change the flavor a lot, then do it.
So that's all in the pot now. It just comes to a boil. When it does, you can turn down the heat to a simmer. And I would let it simmer anywhere from an hour to 2 hours, and just stir it on occasion. And then as soon as you're done, it's good to serve. I usually put some cheddar cheese on top and some sour cream just to take some of that heat away, especially if it's super spicy, which sometimes depending on the jalapeno it is. But yeah, that's it.
Do you simmer it with the lid on?
I put the lid on, yes. Do you have a little holder for your spoons, or?
Set it on your cutting board for right now.
Okay. So yeah.
Are you ready?
Yep, that's it. So turn it down to a simmer, down to low, and let it simmer for a couple of hours, and it's good to go.
Thanks for joining us for this session of Cooking with Some Friends. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and find us on Facebook at Cooking with Some Friends.